What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trick 10s. This episode is going to be a little different. This boat right here behind me, this is a 2020 1448 well built. This is the square nose flat bottom boat. As you can see, the customers put a little bit of work into it, and this thing is going to be getting tricked out. The only difference is I'm not going to be the one tricking it out. Jimmy's going to be taking on this project. He's local to me. He built a sick ass grubbing boat, and that's how I met him. When he built that boat, I helped him out a little bit with it, and I was amazed at how well it turned out. And I asked him if he'd be interested in taking on a little bit of side work, and he's game for it. So I'm excited about this. It's going to let me network. It's going to let me do twice as many builds. If I can get this type of stuff going with other people, it's just going to help me grow. It's going to help everything get bigger and badder and better. I'm going to flip this camera around and show you exactly what this boat looks like, and I'm going to tell you what Jimmy's going to do to it. All right, so the boat is a 2020 1448 well-built flat bottom square nose. He went ahead and installed this trolling motor bracket up here. We're going to be taking this stuff off of here. As you can see, he does fish with the RLOS, and that's how I got hooked up with him. So I'm trying to take care of him. The guy's a little older. He doesn't really want anything super flashy, but he definitely wants to have a nice setup. He's got the money to get it done, and we're going to make it happen for him. Basically, the extent of this build is going to be to bring this front deck back 2 ribs. We're going to have a live well, a storage compartment, and an electrical pan. We're going to have a floor that runs back to the existing back bench seat and 2 big hatches on either side. We're going to end up getting all that foam out of there. He's going to have storage in there for his batteries and stuff. It's not going to be super fancy, but it's going to be clean and it's going to be sick. Once we get done with that, we're going to come back and we're going to paint the entire boat, and then we're going to run turf on the whole thing. It's going to be a sick little build. Can't wait to see what Jimmy does with this thing. Let's get back to work. What's going on, guys? So Jimmy brought the boat back today, and man, he's been killing it. Let me tell you, this thing looks amazing. Look at all the framework he's got in here. Looks really good. This floor is going to be super strong. Got the live well installed. He did this live well the way that I do mine, with the drain going to the bottom. It looks really good. Pretty excited about that. All this framework is literally the exact way I would have done this. So this guy's getting a great boat build. He's got lots of storage room up here. He's even got some supports up underneath the live well down there. It's really gonna make sure this thing's strong. This layout is gonna basically be a live well, big storage hatch, and we're gonna have his electrical hatch over here on this side. He brought the boat up here just so we can make these pieces with it here, make it a lot easier in case we need to tweak something and take measurements. But I did bend the floor up for him. He's gonna put that in, and we built some little side gunnels and side panels that are gonna go in here. And I also made these pieces to go inside of this back bench seat right here. These are just sitting in here. We're gonna attach those in, and that'll finish that off and make it like a floor in there. But overall, I mean, this thing looks amazing. I'm hyped about this. It's gonna be sweet when it comes back. He did have to patch up a hole up here. He had a big access panel up here, and we put this hole right here. This is gonna be another drop-in storage hatch. It's gonna go up in the front deck. I still gotta build a trolling motor bracket to hold his trolling motor up here. I'm gonna get that finished up later. But man, this thing is really looking good. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, so Jimmy just brought the boat back, and he did not disappoint. This dude is a fabricator and a welder. Let me tell you, this thing turned out perfect. This floor that I made for him, this is exactly how I would have installed it. These side panels that he did, they look killer. He knocked this one out of the park. It's just a whole build that, you know, would have taken me 20 hours to do, and he knocked the thing out for me in 2 weeks on his side time. So I'm hyped about this. This gives me an opportunity to do twice as many boats. And you know what the coolest thing of it all was? When he brought it back to me, he was ready to go. He was like, so when's the next build? I was like, I don't know. You want to do another one? He said, yeah, he enjoyed it. Now, he learned a lot from this build, and he said he's already got some things in his head that he wants to change on this one. That's how it works. That's what I like about Jimmy, is that he's like me, because that's how I am. I do something, and then I'm like, man, I wish I would have done it that way. So every single time I do a build, they get better and better and better. I save material. I have a better layout. I have a better fabrication. It's just simple things like that. You get better with time. And I'm hyped that he's ready to do some more boat builds. So if you guys are interested in getting a boat build, holler at me, because Jimmy is ready to go. And if he can pump these out and get them back to me in 2 weeks looking like this, I can finish them up in 2 weeks and you can have them back in a month. Now that he's got the boat to this point, it's going to be very simple for me to finish this thing up. I've already got all the hatch track frames welded up. So now all I've got to do is cut out the lids and attach the hinges onto them. Then I can just drop them in. Now up in this front deck, I've got a big live well hatch and a storage hatch, and then there's an electrical panel hatch. He already hooked up all of these pumps and stuff in here, so that's good to roll. So the only thing I have to do is hook up his fuse panel and his switch panel inside this electrical box. Then I'm gonna have a couple of sheets, one up here and one on that side, to finish off all the metal work in this front deck. Now, I did talk to the customer today, and I was kicking around the idea of going ahead and throwing in the recessed foot pedal tray, taking this thing over the top and putting some cool turf in here, and he's game. So this thing is going to be sick. I'm excited about this, and I can't wait to network with Jimmy again. I'm gonna pull this thing inside for now. I'm gonna get a game plan of where we're going from here. Let's get back to work.
All right, guys, so let me get y'all caught up to date. Now, I'm sorry, I do not have my microphone on me. I left my microphone at home. I've allowed a couple of days at the shop to finish this thing up, and the show must go on. If my vocals are messed up a little bit, I'm sorry, I'm gonna do the best that I can. Now, we left off with Jimmy finishing up all of this metal work in here. He did a killer job on this thing, and since then, I've finished up all the hatches, built the lids for him, put the hinges on them, and I talked to the customer, and he wanted to put turf in here, so I told him if we're gonna turf this thing, we need to put some type of a finished coat on these hatches. So we ended up getting them powder coated. You see up here, this is an electrical panel hatch. Now this one is powder coated black. They're all this gloss black color. It looks really good. This is gonna be the switch panel pan right here. Got my homeboy Austin helping me out with this build. I'm gonna teach him a little bit about how I do things and try to get some more help on it. That we can help me out with some more of these builds. Now the bad news is Jimmy actually got deployed. So I had a couple other builds lined up for him, but he's not gonna be back until March 20th. So it's gonna be a little bit of a delay before we can get on to any other boat builds with Jimmy, but at least we did get this one done, and this one's going to be sick. My homeboy Austin, he's gonna finish up this electrical panel hatch. He's gonna go ahead and build some of the battery trays we're gonna put inside this rear back bench seat, and then I'm gonna get all this stuff in here, put in here, and finished up. The rest of these hatches, I got them sitting in the office because I don't really want them to get metal dust all over them. These things look sharp. I'm trying to keep them nice and clean. So I'm gonna show those to you guys very shortly. While he's getting this stuff wrapped up, I'm gonna run up to Home Depot. So I need to get a little bit of that closed cell foam. You can see the way Jimmy did this live well right here. Well, he didn't put foam around it. I want to put foam around it to insulate it. So I'm gonna run and grab that. I'll be back shortly. We'll pick it up right where we left off. Let's get back to work. All right, so I just got back. I picked up this sheet of 1-inch closed cell foam. We're gonna use that to insulate around this live well. While I was gone, my homeboy Austin went ahead and finished up this electrical panel hatch. This thing looks sick. As you can see, it's got grommets on all sides. Switch panel drops in, fuse block. I'm gonna take this out and take everything out of here. I'm gonna paint this silver pan black just so it will match everything, and then we'll get it all installed into the boat permanently. I'm gonna put you guys back on the time lapse. I'm probably gonna do some voiceover since I don't have my microphone for the rest of this video, and I'll have my microphone tomorrow to finish this project up. Let's get back to work.
All right, so I'm gonna insulate around this live well with this 1-inch closed cell foam. I'm gonna tape it up with some HVAC tape. Make sure that it stays nice and cool during those hot summer months and keeps this fish alive. I'm also installing a drain tube in the side of this live well. And the reason for this is in case the pump gets left on, it will not overflow and run into your boat. It'll overflow through this hose and out the side of your boat. Now this is an 1.5-inch hose, and the fill line is only a 3/4 hose. That is going to mean that it cannot fill faster than it can drain, so we should never have to worry about this thing overflowing. Now it's time to cut the hole out for this recessed foot pedal tray. I'm gonna have to add some supports up underneath this front deck. I have to do it with all the boats, especially this one being a square nose boat. It's got a lot of space up there, and if I don't support this, it's gonna get spongy, especially over time. See, I got my trolling motor bracket here. I made this thing up. I'm gonna get this thing staged up where I want it. I'm gonna grind it up so I can weld it onto the front bow. Then I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna put some bolts down through the deck with some big washers on the back of it. This one actually hit through one of the cross ribs in the front deck, so it is very sturdy. And I'm making sure that this thing is going to be built to last, because more than likely, I guarantee you he's going to end up upgrading trolling motors. I figured if I'm going to install a trolling motor, I might as well go ahead and tape this off and paint it. I don't have any of the stock well-built paint. The stuff's like $30 a can, but the brown camo and the green camo are both pretty close. If he wants to touch it up later, he can. Now I got a little bit of wiring to do. Not a ton of wiring going in here, but I did go ahead and jump all of his switches to his fuses. That way, if he wants to add stuff, all he has to do is run his negative into the negative bus bar and his positive into the back of the switches. And I hooked up 2 of the switches. The only thing that I had to hook up in this boat was the fill line and the recirculate pump. Now I'm installing this kickstand up underneath this front deck to add support into it. Now, Jimmy already put one in the hole that's right behind this one, but I wanted to come back and make sure that this front deck with this recessed foot pedal tray was going to be strong.
All right, guys, so we got this thing completely finished up now. We're getting ready to put all these hatches in here, and then we'll be ready for the turf. You can see I got these battery trays up in front of this front compartment right here. We went ahead and capped off this hole where you had a little access panel in there. We also capped off this hole into the back right here. All the metal work is done in here except for the installation of the hatches. The live well is finished up. I did wrap the entire live well. I wrapped it with some 1-inch closed cell foam. I doubled up 2 pieces of that, and then I wrapped it with some HVAC tape to make sure this thing's gonna stay cool and keep his fish alive. Then I've got all of his electrical ran. It's only got a 4-gang switch panel in here, and this is gonna drop right into his electrical panel hatch. I'm gonna get all these hatches put in here, and I'll give you all the once over before we turf this thing. Let's get back to work. All right, so we got all the hatches installed and riveted in. We did have to cut a couple pieces of 1/8 inch here, and over there on that side. But really, that's all we had to put up on this front deck besides the hatches. The electrical panel turned out really nice. Looks nice and clean. We got his rear hatches installed. Now that all this stuff is installed, we're gonna start on this turf. I gotta get this turf in here. We'll put this trolling motor back on here. I'm trying to wrap this project up today. Let's get back to work.
All right, so now it's time to install this turf in here. It is really nice having somebody help you with the turf. I really don't have anybody help me. Usually I work by myself, but as you can see, I've made a line down the front of this boat, basically about 1 inch shorter than my sheet was, and I kept my turf nice and straight on that line all the way from the back of the front deck up to the front trolling motor tray. Then I tucked it in nice and neat on the sides, and I come back and I find all my hinges, I can feel for them, and I cut out between all the hatches and the little grooves between the track for them and the hatch itself. Same thing on the other side. I cut this sheet about 1/2 inch or 1 inch bigger than what it measured at the longest point. That way I could tuck it in nice and tight up against the side of the hull. All right, so now it's time to get the floor installed. I only have 3 sheets of this Swamp Camo HydroTurf, so I had to be very careful how I cut this and how I put these pieces in here to make sure that it would fit. I left those side panels for last because I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough to cover them, but luckily this thing worked out perfectly. I only had a couple of scraps that were very, very minimal. Since we didn't build the deck back to the transom, I just rolled this back over across the back, and it was actually enough to reach all the way down to the floor. It looks really good the way it's all finished out. There's a lot that goes into cutting this turf, and it is rough on the fingers. You've got to make these cuts perfect. If you don't, it will show up like a sore thumb, and it will just ruin the entire build. Thankfully, Austin helped me out with this. I'm trying to teach him some more about this stuff. He's into it. He's a really good aluminum welder, and he likes working on boats, so I'm hoping that I can make this more of a permanent thing. Get a lot more help from him. I've been teaching him about how to put these hatches together and build them, and it really takes a lot of the load off of my shoulders because most of the hatch orders that I get are for at least 3 to 12 hatches. That's a lot of work for one man to do. On to the last piece, finally. This thing looks so good. I've never used this swamp camo, and I was happy to put this stuff in here. I think it turned out really good. I had to piece this front together with a couple of smaller pieces because that's all the turf I had left right there. All right, so now it's time to get this recessed foot pedal tray ready and install this trolling motor. I had to drill a hole inside of this recessed foot pedal tray. That's gonna have the power wire running up to it. I did put a rubber grommet in there. This trolling motor is gonna bolt all the way through the front of this bow. These are gonna be extremely hard to reach, and this is where it's really nice to have an extra hand, because I've gotta lay down on this deck and reach well up underneath of the front of this boat as far as you can get, and try to put a washer and nut on the back of it, and also tighten the thing up. So these are not easy and they're not fun. But we got this thing on here and we installed it with some good stainless steel fasteners. It should not have any issues with this thing at all whatsoever. Besides, it's only a 12-volt trolling motor. All right, so here we go again. I'm gonna attempt to pack as much foam inside of this front deck as possible. This thing was stuffed in there. The front deck of this boat is so big underneath because it has the square corners and the flat nose on it. It just has so much more surface area, and they really had a ton of foam in here. I fit about 95% of it up in there. I was surprised, and it was not easy because I had to run all these wires up underneath there too. So you gotta figure where you're gonna run your wires and how you're gonna set this foam in there so it's not gonna be in your way. Attach this foot pedal tray in, and this thing is almost completed. All right, so now it's sticker time. We put some of the Trick 10's logo stickers on the interior of all of the hatch doors. I think it looks sick, and if I'm working on the build, I'm gonna put decals all over this stuff.
All right, guys, so the boat is completed. It turned out great. I'm really happy with the way everything looks. It just looks sick. I mean, the whole build was pretty easy. Jimmy hooked it up with the framework. My homeboy Austin helped me with it. Since I started working on this boat, I only put 2.5 days into it, and it's done, which is awesome. I'm gonna turn this camera around and give you all a little walkthrough. All right, so this is pretty much a full build. The only thing we did not do was enclose this transom area back here. Now he does have a 36-volt torpedo motor that's gonna go back here. He's got a battery for it, and the motor obviously gonna hang off the back of the boat. So he wasn't worried about doing this, and I told him we could always come back later. We can enclose this and make this deck bigger on the back of this. But he does have a humongous bench seat in here. I mean, this bench seat is really big. You can see all the storage he has inside here. There's no batteries in here. This is basically gonna have storage for all of his tackle. You can fit a lot of stuff in there. Jimmy did a good job the way he set that up. All these hatches are powder coated. If you get your hatches powder coated, then I put stickers on all of them. It's pretty cool. We got the same thing on the other side. Now Jimmy put this floor in here, these side panels. We used 3 sheets of this swamp camo hydroturf, and it just worked out perfectly. I mean, we literally only had a couple of drops that were like 12 inches square. We turfed this thing. It was like Tetris trying to fit all these pieces in here, but it turned out really good. It actually looks perfect. This is the switch panel right here. It's the heart of everything. Has all of his controls in here. Now this is a very simple build. So all he has set up are these two right here. He's got his main pump in, and this is his recirculate pump. And they're hooked up into this fuse panel right here. And this whole pan inside of here has a couple screws, one here and here, and then 2 on this side. Take those out, pull this out, and get to your pumps. Pumps underneath this. Gets us right into our live well. This thing is sweet. He's got his overflow on this side. He's got his main pump in, and this is a recirculate pump. It's also the flow right, so you can pull this out. He's got a screen down here on this recirculate that will suck all the water out of the bottom. It will keep it recirculating or dump it out the side of the boat. He's gonna have a drain plug in the bottom down here, just like he does on the back of the transom. In front of that, we have a big storage compartment. Now, this is an electric only boat, so he wants to have his weight in the front of this boat. He's not running lithium, so inside of here, he's got 2 big Group 31 batteries, and I ran all his power in here. He's got to hook up one for the switch panel and one for the trolling motor. But he still has a decent amount of storage on either side of those pans inside of there. He'll be able to fit a lot of stuff inside of there. Then this front deck is huge. Now with the V-nose boats, it tapers in, so you lose a lot of space.
But with the square nose, you get all this extra space over here. It's pretty cool. The only issue with this is it doesn't cut through the water quite like the V-nose boats do. Now, I did install his trolling motor up on this custom bracket that I welded up here, and it looks perfect. It sits up here nice. I mean, if he wants to upgrade later, it'll be very easy for him to get inside here and take these bolts off. That thing is permanently installed. It's never going anywhere. Put a recessed foot pedal tray in here. I did cut a hole in this recessed foot pedal tray. I do this with a lot of them. That way I can run the power cable through there. It'll hide any of his wires up underneath this front deck. And he did throw this extra hatch in here. He wanted to have a little bit of extra storage up here. It's basically just going to be for like life jackets or a throwable, stuff like that. He doesn't have a pan inside of here. We might end up putting something inside of there. It's just the bottom of the boat in there. But if he just wants to put a life jacket in there or a throwable, it'll be perfectly fine for that. All in all, the thing turned out sick though. But his front deck is humongous. He's got a lot of room to walk around up here. I think he's gonna be really happy with this build. We'll find out because he's coming to pick it up tomorrow. Not too shabby for 2.5 days. This whole networking with Jimmy thing is killer, and unfortunately he got deployed. He's not gonna be back till March 20th. I've already got 3 other boats lined up to do with him, and I'm hoping we can knock those out quick as soon as he gets back, because this is the way to do it. I can get these things done quick, I can pump out the videos, and I'm gonna put an elite fleet of boats all throughout my local area, and I think that is the best part of it all. You show up at one of these tournaments that are local around here, I guarantee you're gonna have a handful of my boats out there, and they're probably gonna be in the top 3, top 5 of every single event that you go to. Now with this build in particular, all of these handles that are in here, these are the twist lock handles. They do have keys on them. All the hatches are obviously custom built. I made every hatch inside of here. They all have drain tubes in them, and they were powder coated. Now the camo turf that's in here, this is a swamp camo hydro turf. The customer wanted me to go with some gray turf, and I really wasn't trying to do that because it's harder to lay that stuff. You gotta have everything exactly perfect. It's a little bit easier to hide your seams with the camo, and he really wasn't against it. So he told me to pick one that I wanted to do. I haven't done the swamp camo, so I thought it would be cool. And I think it looks pretty sick. I am hyped this thing is finished, and I know this customer is gonna love it. He's gonna come pick this up tomorrow, and I guarantee you he will probably have this thing out on the water by this weekend. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like, subscribe button, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I'll see you guys next time. I gotta get back to work.